being one of, if not the strongest support that has came to us ever since version 1.1, Silver Wolf is finally getting her rerun in Honkai Star Rail. So the question is she still worth putting forward at this day and age when we're transitioning going towards to 1.6? Ruan Mei is coming, Huo is an excellent harmony / support unit, and how important is weakness implant really for any players playing Honkai Star Rail right now? Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and today we are finally going to be discussing the CN rerun analysis on Silver Wolf, the only unit in the game that can allow us to bypass the elemental restrictions and pretty much allows any of your DPS to be on the right element against the right enemy. We'll be going through Silver Wolf's general overview, talking about her strengths, weaknesses, endgame viability, her Eidolons and Lightcones, as well as her future outlook as of version 1.5 going into version 1.6. So without further ado, let's get into today's content. So just like my previous Silly rerun analysis, I'm just gonna quickly go through the disclaimer. Number one is that this is gonna be applicable for all players. If you're somebody who just started the game, or if you're somebody who missed the current rerun banner in the previous time, or even those who are looking to get additional Silver Wolf Eidolons and Lightcones, I hope that today's content is gonna be of some value to you. And also, this is not meant to be a guide. We have no recommended builds, no recommended team comps, and for that, kindly check out my unit analysis for Silver Wolf this time, although her guide is admittedly a little bit old at this point. We may update her guide with massive changes over time, but I digress. And lastly, the entire focus of all of my rerun analysis is going to be on endgame content. So the value for any unit, especially when it comes to the rerun, it will be determined with how easy a unit can help any player clear the endgame content as soon as possible. Right now, we have Memory of Chaos 10, but in the future, 1.6, we are going to be getting Memory of Chaos 12 as well as Pure Fiction. So we will be discussing Silver Wolf's value to a player's account with regards to endgame content. Now, jumping straight into her overview, the number one value that Silver Wolf brings for any player is going to be the weakness implant. This mechanic is the best mechanic for any new accounts, even if you guys are not using mono quantum teams, because this allows players to invest in far less elements for our DPS coverage, which allows players to hyper focus their resources into 2 or 3 DPS and greatly increasing the team strength for these limiting units, right? So one of the biggest issues with Star Rail that new players might face is that they might often go into battle while being off element. Although it's definitely doable to use off element DPS against the enemies, it is definitely much harder since there is elemental resistance as well as not dealing any amount of toughness bar damage. Now, in the early game, this is going to be really impactful, especially for players who do not have the proper relic or traits investments. So having the right weakness, generally speaking, for new accounts is always going to be extremely important, and Silver Wolf will enable us to get that going on without investing into too many different elements for our DPS. And talking about her debuff applications, she has attack percentage down, defense percentage down, speed down, as well as resistance down, all in a single kit. And as for support herself, she also has one of the highest damage amplifiers out of all supports. So looking at this little bar graph over here, since Bronya, as we know by now, it is the strongest damage amplifier across all supports, all the different supports when paired with, in this example, Silly, CN community has done a calculation where Silver Wolf amplifies Silly's damage by 296%, which compared to Ting Yun, Asta, and Pella respectively lies at 219, 202, and 226%. So Silver by herself is an amazing debuffer, even if we do not want to take into consideration her weakness implant value. The defense down alone, as I've mentioned previously time and time again, is an extremely potent debuff, especially if we can stack on higher and higher. Now, going on to another point is that she is single target focused. Now, this damage amplification for a single target, it may fall short versus multiple targets, and because of this, Pella has been used quite frequently in the past couple of months due to the abundance of duo elites or high number of enemy mobs. However, currently, Silver Wolf is still an excellent debuffer because for right now, most of the stages we only have 2 elites at best. We have never seen a stage with 3 elites or more, but that might change with Pure Fiction or Memory of Chaos 12. But so for now, even in this condition of 2 elites, Silver Wolf can just implant her debuffs on a single elite, and then our DPS can just focus all of their skill points, all of their damaging abilities on one elite elite down first, and then we move on to the next elite. And generally speaking, this will not impact the clear stage whatsoever. We still have plenty of cycles to clear a 3-star content, and that should be the focus of any accounts, right? But going into the future, when we face more than 3 elites, 4 elites, or even 5 elites, that's when Silver Wolf's debuffs may face into a slight issue, because we have to pivot way too long between elites to elites as compared to maybe like an AoE debuffer like Pella with the AoE defense shred, or just generally using buffers which pivots all of our points into a single carry, and our carry can just distribute the damage accordingly. And finally, with regards to her investment requirement, she's extremely easy to raise for a debuffer or a break effect build, only requiring the right mini stats, and that's an EHR body, speed boots, energy regeneration or break effect rope, as well as a HP or defense percentage sphere. However, it is extremely hard for a Silver Wolf that is not above E2 to be built as a crit sub DPS due to the requirement of attack percentage, speed, energy generation, crit rate, crit damage, and EHR. And I would highly advise players against building a crit ratio Silver Wolf unless she is E2 or above. And with that, let's talk a little bit about the endgame viability. So currently, for all players, regardless if you're a new player or old player, Mono Quantum is by far the most resource efficient team comp, and this can be utilized against any element. Once you have assembled the Mono element team, you pretty much can just full auto and clear any side of Memory of Chaos 10 as of right now, right? In fact, even if players do not have mono element, we can still slot in an on element support and sustain units to further enable Silver Wolf landing her right weakness, and this is going into the team building flexibility. So for example, if the enemy has a lightning and quantum weakness, then we can run Viability, Silver Wolf, Ting Yun, and Bailu, because right now enemy already has lightning and quantum weakness, and therefore Silver Wolf can always mark imaginary weakness for our Viability. It does not have to be mono element, it does not have to be mono quantum even, as long as you pair the right team comps, whereas your team members already have the element that the enemy is weak against. She will always mark 100% of the time the right weakness for your main DPS. Kindly check out my Silver Wolf analysis where I talk about her team building as well as generally how weakness implant works, but I will not be talking about it over here. Finally, a potential counter with regards to Silver Wolf's endgame, I've mentioned it earlier just now. For contents with multiple elite and bosses, Silver Wolf needs to focus all of her debuff on a single target, and for players, they need to quickly kill this target with a lot of debuff and then move on to the next target. But that is definitely going to be up to the future. As of right now, version 1.5, MOC 10, no issues whatsoever using Silver Wolf as a debuffer. Now, talking about her Eidolons and Lightcones, Eidolon 1 is arguably her most important Eidolon, which enables Silver Wolf to do a 2-turn ultimate with ER rope as well as Penacony, even without running the tutorial Lightcone. What is this importance of having a 2-turn ultimate? Generally speaking, just because, especially if the enemy is really fast, and if your Silver Wolf is not fast enough, then your defense down uptime on the ultimate is not going to have 100% uptime. And when that happens, your DPS damage is definitely going to drop off during the few turns where there's no defense down debuff, right? But because of Eidolon 1, you can pretty much always have 100% uptime with Silver Wolf's ultimate, which is where majority of a defense down is coming from. It is not a big deal even if you do not have an Eidolon 1, but for general comfort and quality of life, Eidolon 1 is going to enable a very smooth playing experience when playing with Silver Wolf. Now, Silver Wolf's Eidolon 2, on the surface, it looks like, okay, we reduce the EHR needed for Silver Wolf to land the weakness with 100% of the time, right? As well as for the entire team. So on the surface, you know, we just built less EHR for our entire team, for our DOT units, for other debuffers like Pella. But the true value really is, all these EHR stats required that could have otherwise went into a Silver Wolf that's not Eidolon 2, they can now be converted into crit ratio for Silver Wolf, which is the starting point of any player who wants to build a crit ratio Silver Wolf while still wanting to maintain a relatively high accuracy for Silver Wolf's weakness implants. Remember guys, the main objective for Silver Wolf is not for her to be main DPS if she can't even land her weakness implants. So this E2 allows us to halve the EHR needed for 100% accuracy, and for that, like I said, check out my unit analysis. Now requiring only a roughly 40-ish% on EHR, Silver Wolf can still have 100% accuracy on weakness implant, and the remaining stuff we can go on to crit rate, crit damage, speed, ER, and we can now have a Silver Wolf that can start dealing out respectable amounts of damage with her skills without relying on break effect. And another thing, this is currently quite rare to run Silverwolf with DOT units, but this may change in the future. Like you guys have seen by now, we already seen a DOT set that goes up to 18% defense reduction. So Silverwolf's defense down is already a really big damage amplifier for any of our DOT units. Going into the future, if we see more and more defense reduction sources, then it is quite possible to run an E2 Silverwolf with our DOT team, and it lowers our DOT's requirement for EHR, allowing them to run into attack percentage chests for even more damage. Now, Silverwolf's E4 up to 100% additional damage based on the attack. It is a decent damage upgrade, but it is only for ultimate, that's number 1, and number 2, it is only a 26% damage increase. So honestly, this Eidolon 4 is not as impactful as compared to an Eidolon 6, which is the same as an Eidolon 4 but 100% damage instead. And this will be her highest increase in DPS, going up to 60% damage increase, not including her Eidolon 1 to 5 benefits. So generally, E1 Silverwolf is very confident for daily use, E2 Silverwolf to transition into a crit build for higher damage output as well as potential placement in the future DOT team comp, and E6 Silverwolf for the true extremely Anga Banga high damage. If you guys want to build an Anga Banga high damage Silverwolf, E4 is honestly not that great, so it's either E1, E2 or E6 for Silverwolf. Now, talking about her Lightcone, should players get incessant rain once it's released? The simple answer is Resolution S5 is an excellent alternative to incessant rain. Even without Silverwolf signature Lightcone, you guys can see from the chart over here done by the CN community, Resolution Lightcone at S5, it's only a 2% difference from S1 incessant rain, and this is not factoring in external defense shredding capabilities. So if in the future we're able to attain 100% defense penetration on our entire team, such as if our Sile was using a 4-piece genius set, or if we're going to be running Pella, or if we're going to be facing the exploding goldfish that implies defense down, then Resolution S5 actually outperforms Incessant Rain S1, because as I mentioned previously, vulnerability stacking, it is not exponential as compared to defense reduction stacking. So generally, I wouldn't recommend players to pull on the signature Lightcone, because S5 Resolution Lightcone is an excellent alternative. Of course, if players are intending to use both Silverwolf and Pella in the same team, and your Pella is running Resolution Lightcone, then if players really want the absolute highest damage amplification, then they can consider running Incessant Rain on Silverwolf. And now, going to the second last topic, which is Silverwolf's future outlook. Now, supports like Silverwolf will always have higher value than DPS units due to the team flexibility, and sustain units, since players will only need to run a single sustain per team for now, supports are always going to be the tip-top priority for any banners in Honkai Star Rail. That being said, the value for Mono Quantum, it will slowly fade away as players build more and more units, especially more and more DPS elements. So once eventually we reach a point where we have multiple DPS that can cover every single element, then Silverwolf's Mono Quantum's main specialty, which is you can be slotted into any team comps, it will not be as attractive. However, she's still an excellent unit for any team due to the high amount of debuffs and personal damage. Even if you do not care about Witness Implant whatsoever, she still have over like 40% plus defense reduction. She still has the attack debuff, res debuff, as well as the speed debuff. So generally speaking, her debuffs alone, even without Witness Implant, is going to be an excellent addition to any team. Also, the value for Silverwolf is definitely not going to go away, especially for new players going to the game, or even for the low spending and non-free play players. Up until this point, it has been more than 6 months since playing Honkai Star Rail. Most players have not built every single DPS for every single element. Leave a comment down in the description whether you think this assumption of mine is accurate. So even after 6 months, we still do not have 100% elemental courage, so Silverwolf will still provide value even at this point of the game, right? So you can see going forward into the future, that is just something for us to consider. Silverwolf's value will definitely go up as more and more single target content is released, as well as more and more DOT comp enablers will be released due to the new defense penetration 4-piece. E2 Silverwolf also reduces the EHR required for all units, so who knows what kind of crazy debuffers Mihoyo will to release in the future. And if players want to run them with Silverwolf without sacrificing too much EHR, then it is also another point to talk about. In summary, Silverwolf has one of, if not the best value for any new players due to Witness Implant. Aside from Witness Implant, implant sales, single target debuffs are also second to none, although our current endgame has a higher emphasis on multi-target content. So in terms of banner comparison between Huo, Silver Wolf and Argent Tea, Huo is a sustain / support hybrid that is more advised for older players because, like I mentioned, Huo's sustain capability is not that strong, but her harmony capabilities plus sustain is really good, especially if your team can already survive without spending too many skill points. Silver Wolf, like I mentioned, Winner's implant efficiency, save you a ton of resources, really good for newer players, so there's that. And finally for Argent Tea, he's an AoE physical DPS, and this would definitely depend on your player's account, right? Especially when considered that pure fusion will likely become a multi-wave content. So Argent Tea, it really depends on your account. And with that, we have come to the end of this week's episode of CN Rerun Analysis. Let me know in the comments what you guys were putting for Silver Wolf. What are your thoughts with her current performance, and do you think she still holds a value going forward into the future? If you'd like to engage in further discussions, feel free to check out my Discord at Pokke's Village, where we have a very active community talking about Honkai Star Rail on a daily basis. If you guys want to check out my stream, that's going to be twitch.tv/MrPokke, where I stream 2 to 3 times a week, and the schedule will be updated on Discord as well. And with that, we've come to the end of today's content, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.